It's time for fantasy.
Number 34 on the offense is on my fantasy team. So, touchdown.
Versus reality.
Break out the red panties. We're rich, baby.
With Levack and Goz on 104.5 The Team.
I went underwhelming 2-2 last week. If I was able to use the numbers that I got originally, I would have went 2-1-1. Because when I took when my friend took Jacksonville, he only had to lay 7. But when I did this on the show, it was up to 9. So no use trying over spilt spreads. I went 2-2 last week.
I went 1-3 last week. I was within plays for Mike Tolbert. I was within plays of Matt Ryan getting me to 3-1, but 1-3 unfortunately.
So I pick up a game on you. I am now 24-31 on the season. You are 25-28-2. But because I won, I'm going first.
Ooh, okay.
I ain't scared. I'm ready. Let's do this. I'm going to pick all 4 games from this weekend. I'm going to start with the game that we will be live at the Rusty Nail in Clifton Park for the Bud Light Super Bowl send-off. And that is the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Atlanta Falcons. The first time in the history of the NFL that a 6 seed is a favorite against a 1 seed in their own house. This means that the Falcons, in my opinion, are on that whole little the bookies are begging you to take the Eagles. The Falcons have woken up from their Super Bowl hangover. I believe this will be a hell of a game, but I also believe that the Falcons will win it in the end. I will take the Falcons. I'll lay the 3 points. I think the Eagles had a great year, and when they get Wentz back, this is a whole different situation. Nick Foles does not scare me. I'll go ahead. I'll take those Falcons.
Would you say of these 4 games this week, this is the one you've wavered on the most because you felt confident at the start of the week, but other people felt so confident about the Eagles it made you reconsider at one point?
This is the game that I have had to really check my own confidence and my own abilities to pick games on because Brandon Lang, favorite game of the week, he wants the Eagles. Field Yates seems extremely confident in the Eagles. Me, I'm confident in the Falcons. Give me the Dirty Birds, baby.
I'm going to go quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. If you're playing weekly leagues, we're talking now DraftKings, FanDuel, and others. We're talking about beating projected PPR scoring projections. We're going to start with the quarterback position. You can get this person as the 6th out of 8 quarterbacks this weekend. Give me Tennessee Titan quarterback Marcus Mariota. His projection, 14.6. So that's 220 yards through the air, a touchdown, an interception, and 27 rushing yards. Now, why am I taking Mariota? Well, don't forget the New England Patriots secondary was terrible at some points this season, especially late September through October. That was almost one of the best things to go for. Take the Patriots, whoever they were playing on offense, and take that quarterback because they're going to beat the projections. They did it for so long. The 8th most fantasy football points allowed was by the New England Patriots when it came to quarterbacks. And Mariota, he has an opportunity for 2 reasons to put up good numbers. 1, we touched on, the Patriot defense, not great in coverage. And 2, imagine if Tennessee's getting crushed in this game, which a lot of people think may happen. Well, that means Tennessee's going to have to throw the football in the second half. That's talking fantasy football points, baby. And by the way, he threw a touchdown pass to himself last week. That's 10 points. I can't pass on that. Give me Mariota.
Let's stay with that game, Ghazi Bear. I like your confidence in the fact that you believe Tennessee and Marcus Mariota will resemble a football team this weekend. I, however, disagree with you strongly. I think this is one of those games where calling it a game is an insult to games. This is going to be ugly. The New England Patriots are laying 13 points. Generally, you look at a situation with this kind of double-digit favorite and go, wow, these are 2 really good teams. They're this far in the playoffs. They've got to be special. There's no way you could win by 2 touchdowns. And I agree. There's no way the Patriots will win by only 2 touchdowns. They will win by a lot. This thing will be over early. I'm calling for a little Brian Hoyer action at some point during this game. Tennessee, good run. You overachieved. You probably saved Mike Mularkey's job. But you are not going to be able to save yourselves. Give me the New England Patriots to stay above the fray, ignore the haters like myself, and win by more than 13.
Even that alleged rift between Belichick, Brady, and Kraft may not be enough for New England to fall in the divisional round. You're taking the Pats big in that game. All right, I'm going to move on to the running back position now. Running back position, I'm going to go with Minnesota Viking running back Jerick McKinnon. 9 points projected, and this is where it benefits being PPR scoring for me. So here's what McKinnon needs for me. All I need is 30 yards rushing, 30 yards receiving, and 3 catches. And McKinnon's been good this season when it comes to that PPR out of the backfield plays. FanDuel, DraftKings, you're trying to find that right running back to use. There's a lot of good running backs. This week, you take him a little bit lower, and he's likely to hit that projection of 9. The Saints have allowed the 15th most fantasy football points to running backs this season, but that's okay. And now remember, they're going to balance it out between McKinnon and Murray. Who's going to get those goal line touches? Who's going to get those second and long and third and long checkdowns from Case Keenum? That's all for Jerick McKinnon. 9's a good number. You got to find someone to play. Hope for a touchdown, too. Give me Jerick McKinnon and PPR scoring with a projection of 9 as my play at the running back position this week.
All right, my friend. I'm going to go to this other early game on Sunday as the Pittsburgh Steelers will host the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is going to be a fun game, man.
Is that a French accent?
Oh, the Jaguars. I like saying Jaguars. I know everybody gets mad at me. It's not how you say it. You got to say Jaguars. Well, I'll tell you what. The Steelers are going to lose.
Well, you went from French to like characters on the Florida Bama Shore all of a sudden. Was that Amy from the Florida Bama Shore?
I don't know. Would you prefer the French? All right, here we go in French. The Steelers will have no shot in this game. No, look, I think Jacksonville is a throwback team. They play physical. They play aggressive. They play solid defense. They take pride in beating you up. They also run the football real well. I think Blake Bortles will be slightly better than you think he will be, which will be all they need. I think Big Ben will get beat up and he will cry about it. I think Big Ben probably ends this game in an air cast of some variety, at least in the press conference. Jacksonville is that team that realizes that if you want to be great, you've got to act great. That's why they practice with the Patriots. That's why they're here now. And that is why they are going to beat the Steelers. I'm getting 7 points. I'm going to take my 7 points, but I probably will dabble with my friend will dabble with the money line as well.
Wow, so you think Jacksonville straight up could beat Pittsburgh? I'm obviously going to take the points, but boy, that would be big. All right, let me ask you this question then. Over under. Blake Bortles would have to throw for 150 yards or more for Jacksonville to win the game.
I think 150 is reasonable. I think he can do 150. Okay. I'm actually going to look at him more the way you would look at like a running back. I'm going to go yards from line of scrimmage, and I think he needs to get about 180 yards.
Total offense.
180 yards.
All right, I'm going to the wide receiver position now. Now, remember, as we get closer through the playoffs here, you got less and less players, obviously, to pick from. Next week, we got the conference games. Only 4 teams left. Then we get to the Super Bowl. So eventually, at one point, you're going to eventually have to go with who are the best players at that position and just hope you beat projections. So I know if you're playing DraftKings or FanDuel, the price is going to be higher for this player, but the point is to have the best lineup. So take Julio Jones at wide receiver this week. The projection's 14.7, which is pretty high. That's 14.7 projection's high for a regular week in fantasy football. But when you think about PPR projection, that's 6 catches for 87 yards. Give me Julio Jones in this matchup. And look, I get across the board, there's really good, again, wide receivers to pick from. We're into the playoffs. But Antonio Brown's injured. Alshon Jeffries is good, but he has Nick Foles throwing to him. Are you willing to trust Stephon Diggs or Adam Thielen on the outside? Do you think the Saints will get away from the passing game if Ingram and Kamara are on? Can you bank on a Michael Thomas? I don't like anybody else who's a consistent wide receiver with their projections. So give me the guy that if Atlanta's going to pull off that upset and beat Philadelphia, that needs to have a big game for Matt Ryan. And I get it. It drives fantasy football owners crazy why Julio Jones can never score touchdowns for him. But that could be the difference for you this week. Do the purchase on those weekly leagues. Go get Julio Jones to beat that 14.7 projection this week.
Lofty investment, should be worth it. I think he's going to be a big part of that game as well, especially you're hearing how they're going to try and shut the run down. Well, the best way to keep them from doing that, Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu. So good call. I like it. And let's go with the final game of the weekend. I'll be in that recliner fighting off the snores as I watch Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints go to Minnesota, where the Super Bowl will be, to take on the Vikings. Your boyfriend, your man love, your crush, Case Keenum, against the legend, Drew Brees. A running game of legendary status against Latavius Murray, who I can't stand. But there's a defense of purple people eaters in Minnesota. There's an offensive line that don't play around. There's some wide receivers who have played out of their minds. And I think they will hold serve, win on their home field by more than the 5 points they're giving. And if you will pay attention to my picks earlier, that means the road to Minnesota goes through Minnesota. They won't have to leave home at all after this victory. I think Minnesota takes this one down. I think they will slowly grind New Orleans to a halt. It'll come off early where New Orleans will be moving the ball. Everyone will go, oh my God, here comes the Saints. And then slowly but surely, the Saints will stop wanting to get hit. And that is when the Vikings will take over this game and put it away.
That means we're one step closer for you and I wearing Case Keenum gear on Radio Row. Is that the case? Because I told you if the Vikings make the Super Bowl, I will wear Case Keenum themed gear. But if fantasy versus reality, you start to come back because of the Vikings, maybe we can get you to wear some Case Keenum gear on Radio Row?
I'm tempted to allow you to put Vikings horns on my headphones.
Okay. All right. All right, deal. Last spot here I got for you is tight end. Now, this player I'm going to mention is a obviously top 5 to top 6 tight end in the NFL, but he's not the highest price you'd have to pay for a tight end in fantasy football this week if you're playing. The highest priced tight end is Rob Gronkowski, but no Gronk. Don't take Gronk. Instead, take this guy who's a little bit lower and a lower projection. And that's Philadelphia Eagle tight end Zach Ertz. 5 catches. 50 Ertz, not Hurts. Ertz. 5 catches. 56 yards at the 10.6 projection. Now, last week, the one position that hit for me on fantasy versus reality and blew through the projection was Delaney Walker at the tight end position, who had a similar projection for me. This is good for us when we're talking fantasy football because the tight end position with a backup quarterback is always a great way to go. Remember that Christmas Day game, Raiders-Eagles, and Foles was playing?
I'm trying to forget it.
I know. The backup was in that game. Foles really didn't play that much against the Cowboys, but when Foles played in that Christmas Day game, he had 14 targets. 14 targets to Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz finished that game with 9 catches and 91 yards. Great play here value. Zach Ertz, play him in your fantasy lineups, 10.6 projected points.
I shall recap for you, my friends. These are my Levack fantasy locks for fantasy versus reality. More reality over here than fantasy, my friend, as I am starting my win streak to take you down, clown. All right, we start with the Battle of the Birds. And we'll be doing the Dirty Bird in front of everybody at the Rusty Nail when we give away the Bud Light Super Bowl send-off. And the Falcons win by more than the 3 points that they have to give the home Eagles. The Titans will march into Foxborough and then wish they hadn't, as New England will win by more than 13, way more. I'm taking 7 points plus Jacksonville in Pittsburgh. I think the Jags are going to upset the world and just go ahead and beat the Steelers and go back to where they started this year in training camp, Foxborough, and play New England next weekend. And finally, the Saints go marching, and then they get a whooping from the Vikings as the Vikings hold serve at home, Vikings -5.
And here are my fantasy football picks for the week if you're playing DraftKings, FanDuel, and other leagues. Quarterback, Marcus Mariota. 14.6 is his projection. He's 6th among 8 quarterbacks playing this week. Play him in your leagues, Marcus Mariota. Running back, Vikings, Jerick McKinnon, 9.0 his projection. Good play there for the Viking running back. Wide receiver, go with the highest priced wide receiver. It's worth the play this week. Julio Jones for the Atlanta Falcons, 14.7 is his projection currently. 6 catches, 87 yards. Take Julio, pay the price for him in leagues like that. In tight end, he's valued right now between a coin flip between him and Kyle Rudolph for second. I would go in favor of Zach Ertz. 5 catches, 56 yards. Could be one way to get that 10.6 number. Give me Ertz, who had a lot of targets the last time him and Foles played a full game together.
It hurts! Ow! That was fantasy versus reality. Don't forget, it is very real that you have a chance to win a trip for two to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 52 in Minnesota. Thanks to our friends at Bud Light. The Bud Light Super Bowl send-off tomorrow at this time. Make sure you are at the Rusty Nail in Clifton Park. We're going to take at least 2 more qualifiers. You'll have a 1 in 12 chance. Everybody will be there. You have to be there to have a chance to win a trip to the Super Bowl. Think about that. You have to be a New York resident and be at the Rusty Nail tomorrow. Who else besides 104.5 The Team and Bud Light is willing to do that kind of giveaway? I don't know. And you're going to win. And I'm going to be there to celebrate with you. And Goz is then going to carry us all around victoriously.
No, I won't.
It'll be fantastic.
I'll probably just cough on you, if anything.
It'll be moving. And on top of all of that,